So let's talk about joint pain. It's a huge problem all over the world. And for literally decades, millions of people have been turning to a couple of superstar supplements, glucosamine and chondroitin. But what's the real story here? Does the science actually back up the hype? Are they a real source of hope, or is it all just good marketing? Let's get into it. To really get a sense of why this matters so much, just look at this number: 528 million. That's how many people just as of 2019 were living with osteoarthritis worldwide. I mean, that is a staggering number of people who are dealing with chronic pain day in and day out, and you better believe they're looking for answers.
And, that search for answers often leads people straight to the supplement aisle. So that brings us to the big question we're tackling today. Could these incredibly popular supplements, glucosamine and chondroitin, actually be the solution that so many people are hoping for?
Now, we're not just talking about a health question here. We're talking about a billion-dollar promise. When people buy these supplements, they're really hoping for two things. First, to get some relief from their joint pain. And second, maybe, just maybe, to actually help repair the cartilage that's wearing down. Okay, so what's the thinking behind this promise? How are these things supposed to work? Well, to understand that, we've got to look at the theory. And honestly, it's pretty simple. It's all about giving your body the right tools for the job. The first thing to get is that glucosamine and chondroitin aren't some weird foreign chemicals. Your body actually makes this stuff naturally, and their job is critical. They are, quite literally, the building blocks that your body uses to create and maintain healthy cartilage. So, the idea goes like this. If you take these compounds in a supplement, you're basically flooding your system with extra building materials. The hope is that this extra supply will kick your body into gear to help maintain or maybe even repair the cartilage and the fluid that keeps your joints moving smoothly. It's a really nice, clean theory, but does it actually work in practice? And this right here is where things get really complicated, because when you start digging into the actual scientific studies, you don't find a clear, simple answer. Nope. What you find is a massive scientific tug of war, with major studies pulling in completely opposite directions. This slide just sums up the conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got some really hopeful-sounding evidence. A huge systematic review from 2025, which is basically a study of studies, looked at 146 different trials, and it found that over 90% of them reported positive results for joint pain. Wow, right? But then, on the other side, you have the famous GATE trial, sponsored by the NIH. It was a huge, really well-done study, and it found no significant benefit for pain relief in the main group compared to a sugar pill. So you've got two high-quality sources with two very different answers. All this back and forth in the science means that even the top experts can't agree. As one paper put it, international guidelines have given an equivocal recommendation. Equivocal is just a fancy way of saying they're on the fence. And you know the data is confusing when the smartest people in the room can't come to a clear consensus. Okay, so with the scientists in a bit of a stalemate, let's switch gears and get practical. If you do decide you want to give these supplements a try, what do the studies tell us about how much to take? Well, if you look across pretty much all the clinical research, a couple of numbers pop up again and again. The standard daily dose used for glucosamine is 1,500 milligrams, and for chondroitin, it's 1,200 milligrams. And here's a key detail. That total amount usually isn't taken all at once. It's typically split into 2 or 3 smaller doses throughout the day. Now, let's talk about maybe the most important thing of all. Forget whether it works for pain for a second. Is it safe? It's time to look at the safety fine print, the regulations, the side effects, and some really crucial warnings. First things first, and this is a big one that a lot of people don't know. In the US, the FDA regulates supplements like they're food, not like they're drugs. What does that mean? It means a company can put a supplement on the shelf without ever having to prove to the FDA that it's safe or that it even works. That's a huge difference from prescription meds. But even with that regulatory quirk, here's the good news. After decades of use and tons of studies, glucosamine and chondroitin seem to be pretty well tolerated by most people. When side effects do pop up, they're usually pretty mild digestive things, like a little nausea, heartburn, or gas. But, and this is a really big but, generally safe does not mean it's safe for everybody. There are some very important warnings for specific groups of people, and this is the kind of stuff you absolutely have to talk about with your doctor. So listen up, because this is the really critical takeaway on safety. You need to be extra cautious and talk to a doctor if any of this applies to you.
If you have a shellfish allergy, you need to know that glucosamine often comes from shellfish. If you have diabetes, there's some evidence it could affect blood sugar. If you're on a blood thinner like warfarin, it might increase bleeding risk. And for people with glaucoma, there are some concerns it could raise the pressure in your eyes.
So, after going through the theory, the confusing studies, and the safety profile, where does that leave us? What's the final verdict here? Is it hope or is it hype?
I think the most honest takeaway is this. The science on whether these things actually help with pain is messy. It's mixed, it's controversial, and doctors still argue about it. But the data on safety is much, much clearer. For most people, as long as you're not in one of those specific risk groups, the safety profile looks pretty darn good.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question, doesn't it? We have this weird situation where the science on does it work is all over the map, but the risk of trying it seems pretty low for a lot of people. So maybe the answer isn't a simple yes or no. Maybe the real point is this. Now that you have all this info, is it time to have a new, smarter conversation with your doctor to figure out if it might be right for you?